Oh my goodness. Hello and welcome to season 4, episode 4 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Claire Rowley, and today's episode we're going to cover free motion stitching, both free motion embroidery and free motion quilting. If you've ever struggled with either one of those techniques, well, today is a great show for you. I'm going to be showing you how to do these using the Octi hoops, which are these really interesting looking frames that you see right here. I almost had a perfect start. I have just sprayed some fabric here with some spray starch. Oh, my stick and tear is rolling away. Because what I did was I dyed or inked some fabric to use for the inside of my notebook, because this is a continuation, or really part 3 of a Valentine's notebook special edition. And I have already got some spray starch on this. I'm going to iron it so that I don't have any wrinkles. I deliberately had wrinkles when I inked this so that I could have it actually look kind of like, rustic or kind of inconsistent, because the front is also inconsistent. If you like the idea of being able to make your own fabric out of just plain old white cotton fabric, imagine how fast you can shop. If you just go to your store and all you do is look for plain white or cream colored fabric, in this case. There we go. So I just put this in a ball and dipped it into a bowl with ink diluted. And I have 2 fabrics. You can see how it actually goes all the way through the fabric when you use the inks in that method or that manner. Unlike when we did the hold light stabilizer, ironed stabilizer to the back of the fabric to prevent the ink from going all the way through. And how we did the book front cover. So what I've got here is what was completed after 2 episodes of Fabrically Speaking Live. So if you want to be able to do this before Valentine's Day, you still have time. Sorry you thought your sound wasn't working. It was just me. I still have to get used to using my buttons again. So here we go. What I'm going to do is I want to do some embroidery techniques on this and some quilting techniques. And when we embroider, we need a stabilizer for the fabric. And when we quilt, we do not. However, if I'm going to ultimately have something be a quilt, I don't want any stabilizer on the backside of my fabric, even when doing embroidery. So I've got a little bit of a trick that I'm going to do in order to do that. Hi, Elaine. Hi, Iris. I'll never forget when Iris was driving across California watching one of my episodes, and I was worried about her. She said she wasn't driving, but I don't know. So this is the largest of the 3 Octi-hoop frames, and when you purchase an Octi-hoop kit, you get 3 different size frames in the kit. In this particular thing, what I want to do is I want to, let's see if my buttons work. My buttons don't work. I have some really nice little details on these leaves that I think would be made even more beautiful by having a stitch on them. So I'm going to stretch the stick and tear onto the back of the hoop like you see here, but I'm going to cut a window so that I can embroider on this without having any stabilizer on the back side. And that'll make it more comfortable if it were a quilt. I had to mute myself because I sneezed, you guys. So sorry about that. I don't know if the sound's too loud. Maybe that's a little better. I had it a little bit too loud. Okay. So I need the hoop that's going to allow me to have room to adhere some of the fabric to it. I could probably use the middle size hoop. If I use the middle size hoop though, and say I decide I want to, on these little dots that I created, that I want to actually do like a knot stitch there. Well, what if I have the stabilizer and I don't have it positioned just right? Well, then I might stitch through the stick and tear. So I am going to go ahead and use the largest of the 3 octi hoop frames. And this is the stick and tear stabilizer. The one that's on our website that has the tree frog on the label. And what you do is you lay it over the top of the stick and tear. These are a bunch of scrap pieces. So I'm going to slice this off so you can see what I'm doing better. I do use my paper scissors when I cut this. Don't want to ruin your good scissors. I think I got this in focus this week. Last week we had issues with our focusing. So basically you just draw a line around. And you can use any type of pen that you have. I sometimes will go all the way to the end on one side just to save me, and all the way to one end on the other, just to save me from having to do 2 more cuts. Efficient cutting. It's really curly. I'm going to roll it back the other way. Get it behaving. Hi, Gloria. Hi, Sheila. Is there 2 Sheilas in here today? If you're on Facebook and you have yet to allow Restream to see who you are, you want to do that by clicking on the 3 little dots at the top right hand side of the video that's you're watching right now, and go to the apps. I believe it says apps, and in apps you allow Restream to see who you are. Then I have access to seeing your name, not tethered by my phone. You're Josie, right? And let's see. Doreen, hi Doreen. So now I'm going to peel back this and get a corner. Yeah. It's very warm today here in Arizona. I actually have windows open to let the beautiful spring feeling air come through. So this is the actual stabilizer, and it's 100% polyester, machine washable, permanent, never washes out. And this shiny side is the paper. Go ahead and adhere this to the frame. Once it's stuck on one side, I then pull it like that. And then go opposite side and stretch it. This is a repositionable stabilizer on the octi hoops. If you want to use this stabilizer in your traditional embroidery hoop, you can. But this is just the octi hoop, which you can use on any sewing machine. that can sew without an embroidery unit, which is kind of funny. When you hear it sound like a drum, then you know you have it taut enough. And now I can actually see through a little bit that my heart is going to be nicely centered there. And I want to cut away the stabilizer now. And I see that I can actually give it about 1.5 inches all the way around. So go through and cut, leaving about 1.5 inches all the way around. And you will have more strength if you cut an octagon shape rather than rounding it off like I did here. Thank you for saying I have a good memory. Oh my goodness. My daughter would go, who are you talking about? Are you talking about my mom? There we go. Then the paper that I had, I just take this and place it in there to use another time. So that's not wasted. And you can see I have this nice open window, but just to be sure, because I'm going to be putting this on upside down. Come on, plug in. There we go. Turn on the Caterpillar light tablet that I have here. And I don't need the backing fabric right now. So you can see how you can really see that now. And I want to stick this on. So I want to be able to see the border of that fabric or of the stick and tear, and make sure I position this design within that border, and then press it out like that. So if you've ever done embroidery on a quilt and then turned it into a quilt and then didn't like how thick the stabilizer was on the back, you'll like knowing that you can do this with your traditional hoop as well and achieve embroidery without any stabilizer actually behind the fabric. So all that area there I can stitch without any stabilizer. I've rolled up this fabric and I'm going to secure it with what, you guys? With one of the quiltlets. And the quiltlets will just keep this fabric from possibly getting underneath while I'm embroidering. And then, oh no, you then stitched your fabric to the other side. Has that ever happened to any of you? If it has, go ahead and give me a thumbs up so that I can know that I am not the only one that has ever had that happen. So I take and roll the fabric up. It's golf weather. I have golf clubs. That's all I have to say about it. I don't have a lot of leisure time, but I have them for when I do retire. Is everybody hearing okay? Is it loud enough? Because I did turn it down a little. And now I'm going to take and put this safety pin through the end of the elastic with the elastic folded under a little bit. All right. I've got so many different camera angles now that. So just take and fold the fabric under and pin through. I haven't had a chance to make sure this camera's in focus. And once that is in position, time to switch that camera. Then I take and wrap this around the fabric so you can go from underneath like that and then pick it up And I'm doing this in an area where I don't plan on doing any of the embroidery. And then go like that. And now your fabric is held by elastic and cannot get stuck in the wrong area. I'm focusing the camera right now. Okay, here we go. Now, if you've ever done free motion before, you know that you have been told to actually remove your presser foot and put another foot on. We've got a weird color going on here. I'm gonna have the camera set the white balance really quick. Sorry about that. There we go. Now I don't look like I'm from another planet. So I'm going to remove the presser foot snap-on adapter. This is the satin edge foot, which I was using the last time I sewed on this machine. I'm going to just loosen and remove loosen the screw, and you don't have to remove the screw. And then just take your snap-on adapter off. Should you feel nervous and that you just simply must have a free motion foot on, you can use a free motion foot with the octa hoops. And I may use it. We'll see if I need it. But if I don't need it, I try not to use it. And in this case, since I'm working with a light blue fabric, I'm going to go ahead and select a bobbin that has a similar color, or at least have a light color bobbin. Of course, that was light color. Could have stuck with that. But when you have all your bobbins already wound, it's no longer a problem to change to a color that's more complementary. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use a more neutral color. And this is the Deco bobbins that you find at creativefeet.com. I didn't get a chance to add all the products to this video while we're live, but after we're done being live, I will have it set up so that when you come back, you'll be able to click and see the products used below the video. Until then, you will find them all at creativefeet.com. And this is the 80 weight Deco Bob. And in my machine is almost always a 9014 needle. This one looks a little big. What was I doing last? I don't remember. So what I thought I would do is make the stems on the green look like real leaves. So I'm going to pick a green. And since I really want the color or the thread to pop, I'm going to use the 40 weight thread. Hi, Scarlett. Let's see. I've got so many colors to choose from. I like letting you guys have some input, should you want to have input. I think I'm going to get... I'm leaning toward using this one and another green maybe with it. There we go. Now here's the thing, I just went through all the trouble of inking this and painting all that, so I don't want to really do too much stitching on this, but I thought, well, it's a great opportunity for you guys to learn some really cool techniques, so why not show you more than just free motion. I was gonna say free motion, but then I read somebody say I answered something and the word mention came out of my mouth. So this is the 40 weight polyester, and in my bobbin I have 80 weight, so half the diameter of this thread is beneath, which reduces the chances of the bobbin thread getting pulled up to the top, and it also makes, oh, I never turned the machine on. It's one of those days. The second one. This is one of those days when I didn't give you the chance to say what you wanted. Do you have to use bobbin thread for this? You always have to use bobbin thread on a regular sewing machine, or you will not have a stitch. But your bobbin thread is not what's going to be seen on the top. Another option for you is to lower your feed dogs. Now, I generally leave my feed dogs up as I show things, and know that every time, because of my sewing machine brand, it drops the feed dogs automatically for me every time I go to use the needle threader. So if I bring my needle down and then bring my needle back up again, well, then the feed dogs start to engage again, and you can see that they're up. Now I'm doing this just so you can see that the feed dogs are up. For those of you who do not have a sewing machine that lets you lower your feed dogs, it's okay, Sheila, and it's so nice to have you in here. I know that you're always commenting on my after stuff, but I don't know if I've ever had you in a live before. This is one of the things that makes the Octi hoop so much easier to use than other traditional hoops, is that we actually get to drop the handle into one of the holes, and you have a hole on all 8 sides of all of the 3 different sizes. And now you can take and hold that and move the hoop with just your fingers. And I mentioned straight stitch in the description of this video, and that's all I'm going to use. So if you have just a little featherweight machine, you'll be able to do this. Now I'm going to lower the foot. Even though there's no presser foot on there, you need to lower that bar in order to close the tension discs to make it so that you have actual tension on the thread. And go ahead and now bring your bobbin thread up. Oopsie, I'm not in the right spot. Need to put my glasses on. Where are they? There we are. Glasses. I wonder what it looks like in the nope. I'm in a little bit of a goofy mood. So you turn the hand wheel toward you and bring the needle down, and then as you're bringing the needle up, if you don't have your foot lowered, you won't be able to get the bobbin thread to come up. So you want to make sure your foot is lowered, and then you pull and it brings the bobbin thread up. And this is where you can see that the 2 threads are significantly different sizes from one another. I think you can see that. Well, and in the very first stitch, you can bring the needle down so that you know where you're starting from. You can use a 80-12 needle, 90-14 with this thread, and a universal or the super non-stick So now I've just simply sewn about 4 stitches over, and how I moved the hoop was by just moving my fingers over like that, and the whole hoop comes with you. Be this very, very light touch. You don't have to squeeze that at all. And then you can go right back to where you were. Go back. Remember, there's no stabilizer at all under this fabric. This is good when you're not doing a lot of stitching. If I were going to be filling in this entire pink heart, I don't think the fabric would be able to bear it without additional stabilizer. So I'm going to just go up. And it has a little bit more movement because I'm going through ink. And the ink has a little bit of a sticky behavior to it. So I'm outlining. I'm just trying to see how good of an image you're getting. Now I can go ahead and move the hoop in a zigzag movement and actually create a zigzag stitch, but I am not using a zigzag stitch. So there's one. And this will just add a little bit of something something to the design, because it's kind of fun to have different textures or different stitch looks on things like notebooks. Your finger, when you go and rub along the edges of, or along the surface of the fabric, you'll have this tactile, interesting feeling to it. And on this stem, I'm just going to use a straight stitch. I'm going to hop over and come over to the stem. And that stitch that it's called a carryover stitch, I'll cut that afterward. Goofy is fun. I agree. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come over and make that leaf actually look leafy by just doing a zigzag movement with the hoop, anchoring it with a straight stitch though. Now I'll do another leafy, zigzaggy-ish stitch, and again. Oh, I got my thread stuck. Oh, I have my foot control power cord was wrapped around the spool of thread, and that caused the thread to get caught on my bobbin winder cutter. Let's see if I can get away with this. Looks like I'm getting away with it not having to rethread the machine. I moved my sewing machine so I could teach inking or fabric painting last week. Once again, make sure that presser foot is down or you'll have no tension on your thread. And over. And remember, this ink has a little bit of white mixed into it, so that's what makes it a little bit sticky on the needle. So to get that to not be sticky at all, then I can take and put one of my Free-motion feet on the machine. Raise the presser foot up and screw that on. I like the open toe version of the Free-motion foot so you can see better. And then tighten the screw down and lower the foot. And this is just a straight stitch. You can also make it a little bit stronger by doing little stitches and then going back over the little stitches with a zigzag stitch. And you like new techniques? So do I. Sometimes I just want to be quiet. It's not very often though. Okay. I did about 3 hours of voiceover on my novel yesterday for my Audible version. And then I didn't want to hear myself anymore. So what's really neat about having some of the stitches be like this is that the light catches the thread and makes it appear to have more dimension. You could leave some, like these, not inked or not stitched as much. So on these I can just go a little straight stitch around so that we have the ink showing through also. We have a large shipment being dropped off right now, and I left a note for the UPS driver, but I know he doesn't like leaving me a bunch of really big boxes. And Chase would like to go say hi. Raising the foot, pull that out. Now for the rest of the stitching, should I do a little of that in the centers of the yellow, do you think? Will it be easier? I think instead we're going to switch to the Free-motion Quilting now, unless some of you want me to do a little bit more. I was actually going to do the knot stitch there, so let me do that. And taking the thread out of the needle, raise the foot, and then you can pull your thread out of the tension easier. Hi, Brenda from Iowa. Trudy, hello. How come I don't use the needle down? I get that question a lot. And it's because I don't like breaking my needle. And I will explain that. Okay. So when you have, for instance, if your sewing machine has the ability to have the needle stop in the lowered position, when it does stop down, it depends on your machine. Some machines are better than others at this, but when you lower your needle down by yourself, generally you do that when the machine is not running, correct? Then it doesn't matter, and you can bring your needle down. And I did, and you just maybe jumped in after I did show you can do that. But when I am holding the hoop, I know I haven't moved the hoop. I know my needle is, it left the fabric where it was, so that means the next stitch is going to come right back down in that same spot. Your brain you start to just not even feel the need to lower your needle. It's one of the things that a lot of people would say to me. They'd come to me at shows and go, how come I never feel like lowering the needle with your products? And that's true of all of the products. You just don't need to, because there's something else to look at. And so free motion is a whole nother story though. So you're sewing along and you've got this item. It doesn't have a foot holding it in place. So how can I just trust that my needle, I know where my needle is going to come down, and why wouldn't you just rely on that needle down? So what happens is when you're doing free motion, your hands will be moving a lot as the needle is going up and down. And when you have the machine set to have the needle stop down and you release your foot off the foot control, the machine drops into a lower gear and slows down, but your hands have not slowed down. And so your needle, as it's coming down, can stub its toe on the fabric, and you're more likely to break needles if you use the needle down option. That does not mean you can't lower the needle after you stop. You're more than welcome to do that. However, when your needle is down in the fabric and you have a quilt, the fabric can be moving underneath the needle and causing the needle to be bending. So then you end up getting this large hole in the fabric from the needle being down. So these are some of the reasons I prefer to stop with my needle always up and rarely ever lower it, especially on a zigzag stitch. Zigzag stitches, I generally will never have needle down set ever, only straight stitch. So I hope that answered your question. And now I'm going to switch to a lavender thread and do some knot stitches where I had those little dots so that they're more emphasized. And then we'll switch to quilting and talk about the right batting to use, and I'll integrate and show you why I have two fabrics for my quilt sandwich this time, because we're making a notebook and one fabric is going to be the flaps that go around the notebook, and this is going to be the backing for the actual quilted project. I also have these little cushions here, and these cushions are for me to rest my elbows on while I do the free motion, especially on the quilting. I have a space heater that just kicked on, and we don't need them. Thought I had it all the way down. So this is a very pretty little lavender color, and I never ironed this to get rid of the ink that I traced the heart with. So some of this is not actually, some of this is pen that I used to trace the design, which I use the marker version of the friction pins when I trace designs, because it's easier to draw. It has more of a fluid flow that comes out of it, unlike the ballpoint pen version of the same type of pen, the friction or heat erasable pens. So does anybody have snow or cold weather today? Or are you all enjoying spring-like weather like I am? If that heater doesn't kick off in a second, I just can't waste that electricity. To get a knot stitch, what I'm going to do is a few stitches in place to make sure I got a good knot, and I'll probably draw around. I will draw around that circle, and then I'm going to do a zigzag stitch in place. Now remember, I'm the feed dogs, and the feed dogs are up, but I decide whether or not the fabric moves forward and reverse or left to right by simply drawing with this little pin-like handle. And so if I don't move the handle, it stays in one spot, because the foot that I have on the machine is a hopping foot, so it doesn't have continuous connection with the feed dogs. Should you have the ability to lower your feed dogs, like I do, you can now lower your feed dogs, and I'm going to do that so you know that you can also use these with the feed dogs lowered, just in case. And if you heard that, that was my feed dogs dropping. And we'll switch to the close-up camera. Glasses again, and I have, I have my elbows on my little pillows. I have a thicker pillow on my left arm than my right, because my left arm is shorter than my right. I had surgery that made it significantly shorter than my right. Now, some of this stitching can be done in the free motion quilting process, but a knot stitch would end up having a knot stitch showing on the back of a quilt. So if I were quilting, I would not want to do that. Bring the bobbin thread up again. Okay, the knot, I can't bring it up because I never cut it. And now, once again, as I mentioned, I have these little lavender dots that I painted on this fabric. I've done a circle, and now I know that that's going to stay. And now I can go past, or just keep moving it up and down, creating a zigzag appearance. If you have a zigzag stitch on your machine, you could also do that with a zigzag stitch. Once again, after doing the zigzag stitch, make sure you do some straight stitches or it will possibly fall out. Go around. Going around the design and hopping, moving my fingers in a up and down movement, which is easier to see than a left and right movement. And I am controlling how fast the machine runs. There's no reason for you to go quickly. It's up to you. Now, when I have to travel further, I raise the foot to release the tension and then move to the next dot. Then you won't get any pulling of the fabric. Yes, the painting is a lot of fun. If you didn't catch the 2 sessions, I really get into detail on that. And I apologize that the cameras were not as clear as they are today. Should be good from this point forward. You hear that loud plucking sound? You may not hear it because my camera is really good, or my microphone is set to so you don't hear the machine that much. But it plucks if you sit in one spot too long. The needle is going in, and as you have more and more stitches, it gets louder and louder as the needle exits because of the back side of the needle being rounded. It has to escape all that thread. So you could have a lot of fun with these dots and just hop around and do several. I got my phone too close to my elbow. And I'm not seated in front of my machine as good as I should be. Mostly because I have all this equipment around me. Once again, make sure you tie a knot. And tying a knot is simply doing some straight stitches. And go around it again. And hop to the next one. Circle, and now, so now those circles or those dots were more of markers, little markings, so that I knew where to do my rounded stitching or knot stitching. The octahoops are so much fun because you could do this on a pair of blue jeans, you guys, without any stabilizer behind the blue jeans, you know? I mean, what could you do if you don't have to actually hoop your fabric, but just lay it down like this? You can also use this for felting, the same technique for felting fabrics. Now I have a few more dots down here, and then I'll switch to Free-motion Quilting. This time I'm going to cut my bobbin thread because I don't want to waste it. Because every time you move from one spot to the next, you are losing that much bobbin thread as well. These are the Appliquick thread clips, and they're super sharp at the tips. And another thing that's helpful are the tweezers, and these are for those who have physical challenges. What's on there? I used it to remove some stick and tear on the back of something, and it got on there. So we do have the tweezers. Were out of stock. They are back in stock. What makes these so great? Well, first off, if you've ever used tweezers for menopause, for hair removal, I've never had a pair that have more accuracy, more strength, and all the way across. So it's great for thread and for those unwanted hairs. This little bend on each side makes it so you don't need as much muscle to grab the thread. How any of you have these so you can share with others how you feel about them? So what I have just done is embroider without any stabilizer on the back of the fabric. That means when I'm done, I don't have to pick any stabilizer out. Hi, Jen. Welcome. That's my daughter's name. She spells hers Jenne. Okay, so I'm going to do the 3 little purple dots I have on the fabric. And if you're wanting to do this exact design, you can do it, because I filmed this whole process over the last 2 Fabrically Speaking live episodes. It's a weekly show that airs every Thursday at 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. I also have a school called Create with Claire Rowley at createwithclairerowley.com, where you can interact with others. And for those of you who really like to stay connected, I did open a Discord. It's Claire Rowley. I think there's a space. I think it's Claire Space Rowley. And then you can stay in touch with other members that you see here in the weekly live chat. Hi, Wendy Harper. I think we have more than one Wendy in here today. And hi, Tammy, if I didn't say hi, and hi, Judy. So I'm going to switch cameras and remove this and get it ready for quilting. All right. This is the master bobbin set, and then there's one that has your most common colors as well, a basic set. But they're absolutely wonderful. There we go. You have those tweezers? Aren't they awesome? I'll tell you what, when you forget where you put them, it's like, ah. And this is where my arm was like cut, and they just shortened it. It's a long story. I dropped my cell phone and broke my shoulder. Or broke my tibia. Or broke my... Yeah, I think that's what it is. I can't think straight. I don't want to waste all this bobbin thread. And I tend not to use the scissor cutter because the machine cuts the thread, the needle thread, so short, and then it ends up falling out of the needle. And so it's either I end up having to rethread my machine more often, or I don't, or I have to worry about cutting my bobbin thread. So this is the little notepad that we're going to make. And when I made this one, I didn't ink the inside fabric, so I just had cream color fabric and thought I had an opportunity to paint some more, and I didn't do it. So when we go to remove this, if you flip this over, you can see there's nothing connected to the stabilizer except for the safety pin. So I'm going to remove my safety pin. Tibia in the leg. I know it's not. I knew it wasn't the right one. Okay. So then we just peel this off. And this is ready to be used with another fabric. This is reusable, and I could also patch it with another piece of stabilizer so that I don't have to re-adhere it to the back. Oh, nothing on the back, no puckering, a nice, beautiful stitching with a zigzag look that's not zigzagged. And now I'm going to go ahead and quilt. And when I quilt, I use the straight stitch. That way on the back side, you have a straight stitch instead of a bunch of thread. So the reason that that's a good idea is that if you were making a quilt, you wouldn't want a big blob of thread rubbing against your legs if you're laying underneath a quilt. Right? It would be itchy and scratchy feeling. Now you could use a fusible batting on the back side of this if you like. Just know this, that any time that I use fusibles, I always need to use a foot. And if you're seeing me for the first time and wondering, what are you talking about? Don't you always use a foot? Aren't you creative feet? Well, I am creative feet, but the octahoops make it so you don't always have to use a foot. And in free motion, it's nice to not have to use a foot. Think of the octahoops as a foot that holds things down for you. And I need a piece of batting. I'm going to use the bamboo batting because I absolutely love it, and I know it lasts a long time. There are times that I've used fusible battings though. And so you're fine to do that. I've also found that the bamboo batting stays and stays and stays. Wash it, use it, wash it, use it, wash it. It's still batting in there. If you've ever made like placemats with cotton batting and it ended up being just fabric, it's because it rots away, because it's a living organism that dies and Anything that dies starts to do what? What does it start to do? My humerus. And it wasn't humorous. That was my joke for a while. Thank you. It was actually like broken and shattered into lots of pieces. Sounds awful. Not looking for pity here. That was about 7 years ago. But my arm hurt, you know, the pain that I have now is the muscle because they cut through my muscle. So the tweezers are a godsend when especially when I'm using them in my left arm, and I don't usually use my left arm for much, but I do hold thread with the tweezers with my left hand and then cut with my scissors with the right. So those tweezers make it a lot easier. I recommend when you do quilting that you don't cut your fabric down to a small size as I have here. I don't have a lot of excess to be able to quilt all the way to the edges, but I'm good at this, so I don't have as much difficulty as you do. This is some of the fabric I did in last week's episode of Fabrically Speaking Live using bubble wrap and stamps and a palette knife to create these different shapes. But you can use the fabric inks to be as elaborate as this. And this has stitching on the back side because I've been stitching through this. I have this always ready just in case I don't have time to get a sandwich together. Someday it'll be all done being stitched. So I'm going to take it and make sure that the batting or the fabric is within the border of the batting. So there's batting all the way around the colored fabric. And it would be really good to have made these bigger so that the backing is bigger than the batting and the top. And then you know your back is big enough. And I didn't do that. So in case you guys ever encounter something like this, fold it in half. And I did make it the right size. We want wrong side to the batting. And you can also use a pin and pin through from the top and go, okay, there's my corner. And then find the pin on the back and make sure that you've got your corner lined up there if you have the same size. But as I mentioned, far easier to cut the backside bigger than the batting and the top. You love the look. Now the thing about bamboo batting is it has this incredible static cling. And so you don't have to sit there and worry about these things shifting from one another. So if I try to move the top fabric, it's stuck on there without anything holding it in place. So you want to make sure that that the batting is flat before you lay it down, because if it isn't, the batting will stay folded up beneath there. And here's the pin again. This is the corner of my back, and it's not far enough over, but I may not need it, and I have a template that I've created. You can also just kind of wing it by using your notebook as your template. So you can see this is a tight shot. Let's get the top, just the top without it being close. There. Now you can see the whole thing. So if I take this notebook out of here, which I was going to do without being online or streaming, close the notebook, and that is my actual notebook size. So this is going to be this blue that you see here, and then I have this fabric which I inked to make the flaps. So all of the inside of the book will be this blue inked. And here I'm showing you how you can also, after you do the dipping, then you can pour some more on it while it's still wrinkled and create a different kind of marbling effect. The same kind of techniques you can create using watercolor or fabric dye you can accomplish using the inks that I covered in the last 2 episodes of Fabrically Speaking Live. Hi, Picola. Welcome. So here is my notebook. And this is, you can see that it is significantly bigger all the way around than the notebook. And to make sure that I quilt to the actual notebook, I take one of these markers, and this is the friction pen marker. And this is the front cover. And then you can draw around it like this. Okay, this is the area that really matters. And all this other area is practice, where you can quilt and get good at it. I'm going to open this up and hold down on the notebook so it can't move, and move it and so that it's open. And now I know that is the full size of the actual fabric. However, you need a little gimme room, a little extra room for the spine. So I'm going to then move this over like another 1/2 inch that way, and then draw around. And it's not that easy to see over here, but you can see on this side how I have the line going around. If you need to draw it bigger, draw it bigger. Because this is you need to quilt really good in this border here. Out here, it doesn't matter that much. And I'm going to really love using this notebook. If you've ever used the friction pens, you know that you don't usually have such an easy time marking. You can go slower too and have it release more ink. I can add a link to where I got these. Now I'm going to take and try to center the book in the boundaries, because I made the boundaries a 1/2 inch bigger. And I'm doing this so that I can find the center of the book. So that's the actual center of the book. In case I didn't already say it. I feel like I'm repeating myself. And you can take and draw from one side to the other. And if so, this is the area that really matters, and the back is just for fun. You gotta go, or you gotta get some. I got my right foot is cold. I put my slipper on when I'm not sewing. All right. You need to get some clear time. Are you saying that you've been missing my shows? Well, I think I got all the quirks out of the show, so now it's going to be just so much fun providing you guys with more. So say you accidentally made your fabric the exact size of the cover. What do you do so that you can quilt all the way? Take another piece of fabric and sew another piece of fabric on all 4 sides. Make it bigger and then lay it down, and then you'll be able to quilt. Rather than trying to challenge yourself by quilting all the way to the edge. But I will show you how I quilt all the way to the edge as well. As you get better and better at using them, because you actually get them out and use them, Are you guys using yours or are you staring at them? Have you? Oh, you have been. All right. So if you haven't been using your octi hoops, and I say this and it may seem silly, but because they are unique to anything that's ever been out on in the sewing industry ever before, you need to familiarize your brain with them. Your brain has this stranger danger little behavior in it, and the stranger danger is partly what makes you not use them. So you might go, oh, I should really get those octi hoops out and try them. And then you go, there's this little voice in your head goes, but they're scary. So you take them and you put them on and you walk around the house and look at them and go, these are nice. I know these. These are familiar. These are good. These are good. I can use these. And then you get away from your sewing machine altogether. Take them to the kitchen. Sit down on the kitchen table and just grab a corner and bring one corner to the corner of the other. And your dominant hand, rest your head. You don't want to even have to work at this. You want to be relax, have a cup of coffee, tea, whatever, listen to something, watch TV, do whatever. Just bring one corner to the other and then move it around. And then grab a corner and swing it around and move it around. And this is with your non-dominant hand does the bringing of one corner to the other corner. Your dominant hand has no business getting involved. Its job is to hold on to the crayon feeling handle, and it then becomes part of the job too. So after you feel like you've got the bringing the thing to the corners together, then you can, without your machine again, sit down and rest your elbows, keeping in mind that that's what you're going to be doing when you're resting or sewing at your machine. You will actually be allowed to put your elbows down, which all other methods of quilting has required your elbows be up as you move your entire body to move your quilt. But with the octi hoops, because the hoops lock together without any screws or clamps, one frame goes underneath and then you can't see it. And talk about your brain going, ah, it's so scary. There's something under there that can break my needle. Ooh. But when you drop the smaller frame and put it on top, well, then now you know where the bottom frame is. So that scared part of your brain can relax. And you just drop the handle into one of the frames on top, which is able to be held in by the hoop. So you don't have to squeeze and push and hold it in any particular way. Then you just at your kitchen table again, get away from the sewing machine so you have no pressure. You just start practicing that moving your fingers, and I rest my hand on the frame beneath it. Elbows are down, shoulders relaxed, and you just draw. And that is what I'm about to do. You haven't used them yet? So should I challenge you guys? I challenge you by Monday that you guys at very least do that much. Do the training of the brain part. And then next Thursday, I want to see you guys go, I used them, and then inside the school start sharing what you're doing with them. This is a really low pressure project. It's just a notebook. You don't even have to give it to anybody. But when you're done, you may actually want to. So knowing that the ink is sticky, I am going to keep the foot on while quilting this. And slide it underneath the presser foot. And then you take this medium frame, put it beneath, and then the top frame goes on, and you might feel like you can't get it underneath the foot, but you can, and I'm going to show you. I integrated or made the hoop have this particular shape. So it has this little valley there, and the valley is for the foot to go over. So see, even without having to raise the foot higher, I was able to do that. And I did that so that even the featherweight and other machines that don't have the ability to lift the foot up higher by pulling up on the lever can still get their foot beneath it. But remember, you don't have to use a foot. Okay, what color of thread to use? Now, I do have pink, or the lavender thread ink around the daisies, but I'm not real fond of that. I was like, nah, I don't know. But I'll let you guys decide. Should I outline the daisies with lavender? Or should I do whatever I want? And I'm going to discuss the kind of threads that we have. You want to look at maybe a color wheel to know what complementary colors, what color would complement this. But I was thinking I would quilt with a white thread and make the little dots into daisies. Should I do that? Would you like to see me quilt daisy shapes everywhere there's a yellow dot, so it doesn't look like someone went, oh no, and spilled a bunch of yellow paint all over their blue fabric? And I think you're going to agree with me. I'm going to switch to white. And I really want the thread to show up, so I'm going to use 40 weight white thread. And when we quilt, we don't cover up. We don't try to block in, so I won't be going over these daisies and making them whiter. I'm so glad to hear that, Amy. I want to see more of what you've done with them in the school now that you've fessed up and told me. I'm looking for some white thread in my ocean of thread here. Where is it? Do I not have any out? We're out of a lot of thread colors right now, you guys. Sorry about that. You could, just so you don't, so that you don't ever see that other color pop up, switch to a white bobbin thread as well. And I'm going to decrease my thread tension from 4 to 3. So that's one full thread tension. I have the Super Universal 9014 needle on the machine, which is my favorite needle. It isn't the only needle that I use, but it might seem like it on the show anyway. Wear your glasses if you need them. And I can doodle, so I am going to be doodling around these. Just doodle some daisies. And here is where I use the liquid base to block the blue, or when I was inking this part, I didn't want these colors to get into this fabric. So I used the liquid base glue to go around. This was a deliberate thing to make that white kind of look. So I'm going to really emphasize that by stitching around it. And also this is going to create more puffy. Got my elbows on my pillows. These are the bolster pillows. This is the bolster pillow pattern. Lower the foot. Bring my bobbin thread up. Once again, I didn't have to hand turn my needle because I can see this foot doesn't block my view of the fabric. But you could have turned your hand wheel. I just dropped one of my pillows. It's because I got my machine a little bit too close to the edge. Now you can take this needle and bobbin thread and pull it to the back for a clean knot, or pull it through with a hand sewing needle, go through and down into the batting area and then come back up, and then the threads get pulled and lay inside, and nobody ever knows where your stitch started. The length of your stitch is determined by your movement of the fabric. And I just took my thumb and pushed the bottom frame over, and now I push the top frame over. And this is how I progress across the surface. Deliberately creating that cloudy look. It was on purpose, but it didn't look deliberate until now. Now with the stitching, now it really looks like I planned all along. So I'm just scooting and moving. Elbows remain down. Shoulders remain in a comfortable, relaxed position. Shoulders relaxed. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed is the mantra. And I will probably come back around and go around and outline everything else as well. I do not do free motion with the octahubes with yarn. It doesn't mean there isn't a way to do it, but I have not done that. I don't do free motion with yarn. I don't like the lack of control, but it doesn't mean it isn't possible with the aid of things like straws. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this thread because it's distracting me, and since it's a notebook, it's not going to come undone. If it were a quilt, I would care more about how I secured the beginning of my stitch. When I was involved with the development of the Glennon machine, which is the free motion machine, sews yarn, it was just not a very good concept. But you know, they've gotten pretty good at it on some machines. If you beg me enough, I'll play around with it. The sequins and ribbon foot with a straw to keep the yarn exactly where you want it. It's probably possible. However, it would require our sewing machine had to have its feed dogs lower. But I'm not teaching that right now, so I'm going to stop problem solving something I haven't done. And now, should I go around the outer? Yeah, I'm going to do that. And I was more talking to myself than you. So come here, and once again, tie a knot, and go around the daisies. I thought about playing around with some of the feet though today with this as well. Elbows down, shoulders relax. Until you get comfortable, probably reduce your thread or your speed of your machine using your speed control so that you don't feel that urgency to go too fast. You can use a speed control that's 1/3 less than normal. Just take it down a little bit, 30, until you get to where you feel like you can handle the speed. But you don't have to go really fast. It is not required. Now I want to do some stitching around this daisy too. I like it. It kind of looks like they're glowing a little bit in the sunlight. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. And you'll hear me say that as I'm sewing, I'm talking to myself because I start to feel maybe a little discomfort in part of my body, and I'm like, oh, I'm tensing up. And there's no reason to not stop if you feel the need to stop and readjust. So you just can spin everything around and shift this. Now the heart is starting to even more lift up. Was I talking to myself? I should let you know when I'm talking to myself. You guys are silly. So are you saying that every time I say elbows down, shoulders relax, you guys do that when you're at home? Because that's really funny. When I was at shows, I would talk about it, and everyone in the audience would drop their shoulders, and they were just standing there watching me and lifting their shoulders. I'm going to continue now and go around the daisies that are over the heart because I like how that looks so much. And I know that the center of the daisy will pop up more if I do that. Go around there. Scooting it over. Scooting the bottom frame over. Top frame goes with it. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Bring the corner of one into the corner of the other. And now I'm drawing with my right hand because I am right-handed. And for those of you who are like, well, you know, I had a injury and I no longer have use of both hands. Well, let's go and show you how to do that. I take the handle out and get rid of it altogether. Set it aside. And I put my dominant hand down on the table and rest my head on it. And now I can stitch without a handle at all. So this is one-handed quilting. And I discovered you could do this because my friend Terry, who doesn't have use of her right hand, wanted to quilt. And I actually got her to be able to embroider because the fabric is attached to the stabilizer when you do that. So she could do that. But she was like, well, I want to quilt. Can you quilt one-handed? And I kept saying no, no, no. And then she goes, well, did you ever try? And I said, no. She's a pain. So it turns out you can, and it is so relaxing. Frequently when I'm doing quilting, I'll just drop the handle, like I'll leave it in the hoop, but my hand will be off of it, and it'll be a while before I realize I stopped using the handle and that I'm only using the hand I cannot write with. Yes, the bad hand becomes so accurate, it's mind-boggling. It's a great lesson, a great thing for you to try as you're learning. Start without the handle, start with your bad hand, put your head down, rest, and feel as silly as I do when I do it. And then I would go to when I did a show once, I went to the ladies' room and left someone at the table, and she was quilting with only her bad hand, and she didn't realize that. I went to the ladies' room, I came back, she was still quilting. And then I was like, all right, I need to sit back down. And she's like, but I'm having fun. And then I go, do you realize you're using your bad hand? And she goes, oh my gosh. And then she wrote her name and she can't with a pen. And I can't write my name with a pen either with my bad hand, but I can quilt it one-handed on a quilt. So I'm not sure what wiring goes on in our brain when that happens, but it is something that is possible with the octahoops. So if you know anyone who only has use of one hand, it is a really cool feature of it that you can do it with just one hand. And I'm going to get back to the other camera. Feel free to ask questions. And I'm going to start training the other side of your brain, yeah. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed, telling Claire what to do. And it's harder to see when you have a presser foot on. The key to this is don't look at the needle, look where you're going, where you're headed, instead of where you're at. And that is true as you walk as well. If you look where you're at when you walk, well, you're more likely to trip and fall. Tying a knot. And now I'm going to go out. Look at how pretty it looks. Can you guys see? I'll be doing close-up shots of this and placing them in the school. CreateWithClaireRowley.com is the school. All right, I need to create a movement where I don't have to keep tying knots. But I am going to start here, and this will be the first daisy that's just quilted. Oh, got it a little bit. There we go. Oop, there we go. Uh-oh, my thread got caught on something. It's because I did that swirly thing. I messed up. Darn it, I don't like messing up. Well, it's gonna be my notebook, so. Is the thread still in the take-up lever? It is. I don't know how I was able to get away with that. Let's see if we can get away with this. I probably should say that, what I mean by that. And I can't because the thread is shredded. So I am going to cut it. See how it starts to crunch up at the needle? That's what I'm trying to get away with it. Sometimes we can not have to rethread the needle if we pull it through just right. But this is not going to allow me. So I'm not getting away with that. Now you know what I mean when I say that. Yes, this is really great for using both sides of your brain. And we do utilize both sides of our brain quite a bit. A lot of people don't know that because they talked about it not being so. They said you can't use both sides of your brain at the same time, but they've since learned you do, and that's why we can drive somewhere and have no idea how we got there. I'm going back over that petal. And I'm doing my best to make a daisy, but I'm not going to be judging myself if they're not perfect daisies. Hopefully that'll be the last time my thread breaks. So now I'm going to head over to another, and I tend to drive in this direction rather than that direction. So where I don't have daisies, I'm going to go around the white, kind of making it look like clouds, which was my intention when I inked this, was to kind of make it look like the sun was coming from this direction and that was clouds in the sky. And hey, we'll have this. I was going to do the sun, but instead I did a daisy. Better to decide these things ahead of time. I'm crisscrossing and I'm going past that center line. I'm coming over here and here's another daisy. And I'm going to spin my fabric around because it's easier for me. And move the hoops over. And now remember that I'm making a daisy because there's a yellow dot. So you could go around the yellow dot and then make a daisy as well. And they may not all end up looking like daisies because I'm just winging it. It'd be a good thing to doodle before you do it. Swirling around, and here we come to another daisy-ish yellow splat. So now you know why I did the yellow splats. You might have thought, that doesn't look very pretty. Why'd she do that? And remember I said that this area out here is now practice. So before you go into the area that's in that line, you could practice. Say, for instance, you want to do a B because it kind of looks like a B. Oh, now I got a B. You could plan that, use black thread and actually make B's. And now I come back in here and now it matters because I'm within the lines of my notebook. And these could be lots of daisies coming out. Here we go again, and another daisy. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Around the center, mouth. The nice thing about free motion is you can go in any direction, either way, and I don't have to be going this fast. This is because I can. So we can make a center and a daisy. Do another center and another daisy. And I'm having fun. Are you guys enjoying this? Or are you going, I want to play? Scooting over. Wasn't a very good center on there. Now you can see the contrast with the darker blue. And I could have been more careful as well, or more deliberate, and made perfect circles and intended for this to happen. So know that if you're inking yours and you haven't done that, the main part of your fabric yet, you can plan and have your centers be intentional daisies in the future for when you quilt it. Zoom, zoom, zoom. And honestly, when I first started with these, even though I invented these, it was not this easy for me. So as you're learning, be nice to yourself, because I struggled with it as well. What was my struggle? My struggle was getting my brain to realize I didn't need to squeeze the pen. I knew it'd be a great idea to be able to draw with your pen, but I didn't get that you didn't have to squeeze it, or I didn't know my brain would feel the desire to squeeze the pen. So if you've ever wanted to do free motion and failed and felt like there's no way, I'm just not one of the people that's ever going to be able to do it, know that it is the process that you're using. These suits will make it possible. You have children as young as 5 years old quilting, 8 years old quilting at expert level within a few minutes of trying it. An expert level is being able to draw what it is you're trying to draw. That's what that equals. There is no quilt police. Now, if you have been told that your stitch length has to be a specific look, it's really up to you what it looks like, but I can guarantee you this. Don't think about what your stitch length is, because that will slow you down, and you will be spending way too much time trying to get your stitches to look a certain way, and lose the fact that your stitches are fine if you don't think about them. Just like when you drive your car and you get where you're going and you don't know how you got there, the brain kicks in and goes, I know she wants her stitches to look good. I'm in charge of that. Just like your foot takes over and keeps you going the same speed. Well, at least you hope so. Unless there's somebody in the car with you that distracts you, and then you start getting excited because of the conversation, and all of a sudden you speed, which happened to me and my mother. I got pulled over because my mom and I were having so much fun. I started speeding. That's what cruise control is for. So if you use cruise control on your sewing machine as well, that will help you, but don't make it go too slow, because too slow makes bigger stitches. So if you have found that your stitches go big and small, that's because you're pushing down against the fabric, and the fabric sticks to the bed of your machine. So when it's sticky, you move slower and the stitches are closer together, and then all of a sudden it slips on the machine, and then you get these giant stitches. If you've ever stitched and felt like you were doing pretty good, and then you stitched and looked and you had this big stitch like that, that can happen from moving your head. So keep your head in one spot. I'll go ahead now and switch so you can see me do it a little bit. So as I am quilting, I forgot what I said. Oh, the bottom of the frame, the bottom frame is cradling and lifting the quilt up so that there is no resistance from the sewing machine on the fabric. So you won't get the short little stitches and big stitches from the fabric slipping on you as you push down, because you don't have to push down, which is why we rest our arms on the little pillows, so that you aren't as, it's not as easy to push down either if your elbows are down. Once you don't have to realize you don't have to push down, you realize how little you have to actually touch the fabric. I mean, you're not actually touching the fabric at all, by the way. You see my My left hand is holding the two frames together. There were no yellow dots, so I just did swirling. Coming up on some yellow dots. I say daisy. I'm doing a daisy and it has petals, and the petals are long and spinny. And if all of my daisies don't look like daisies, it's okay, because I'm not that hard on myself. And nobody else is either. They'll look at your work and they're gonna go, "You made that? Oh my gosh, you made that. I could never do that." You know, people are so believing that only some people can be good at something. And it has been my mission throughout my 35-year career of creativity and the years before that teaching, to help everybody get that you are capable of doing these things. You just need the right tools, and you need to trust yourself and talk to yourself nice. None of this, "I'm never going to be that good at it." You look in the mirror and you go, "I can do this. You can do this. You can do this." If you can drive a car, you can certainly drive the octi hoops. Have these little conversations with yourself. Build your confidence up. Get to know the hoops, like I said, away from the machine with no pressure. Make your first thing be something for a dog, you know? Take the pressure off yourself. Don't have the first thing you do be something that you're going to enter into a contest, but you just might want to enter your first project as something in a contest. Because I had a lady that did a king size quilt, her first project, and her friend was like, "I want you to quilt my quilt." And so her second project was an actual quilt for someone else using the octi hoops. So, and these are not youngins, you know. 92-year-old woman quilted a king size quilt with the octi hoops. It's just hard to film a king size quilt, or I'd already have filmed something like that. Back to the close-up. Can't get your sewing machine out right now? Oh, that's frustrating. When you want to sew and you're not able to. So if you guys enjoyed this 3-part project, and as far as sewing it together as an actual notebook, I just did something I haven't done. I did a little swirl, loop-de-loop, a little this thing. But you know what? It's on the back, and it's the only one I've done. So if you get to the end, you can see how I'm now off. I'm going to come all the way off the edge, and I have fabric really close to take my fingers and do a scissor hold. And this is how you can actually quilt off and come back on again. And this is easier without a foot to come back on again, because the foot can actually get caught. With no foot, it has nothing to get caught on. Stitching all the way along the edge. Remember, nothing is holding the batting together. Coming around the corner. This is all our practice area. It's the outside of the notebook. I think you'll find the most confusing part is just moving when your machine's not running. I had people that would not stop the machine. I'm gonna progress all the way over. This is just practice, and I don't really need it, so I'm gonna move over. This is how I would skip around on a quilt as well. You don't have to tie a bunch of knots. If you want to get from over here to over here, you just can stitch out here and come back on. Uh-oh. Why is it off? You love the brain connection conversation. Part of that is I have people in my life that have had brain injuries. So I've always kept up on brain research. And also I just want to always be as good as I can at anything. It's pretty easy to spot someone who is talking on the phone while behind the steering wheel. So did you see on the news there was this lady that has, I guess she has a Tesla, and she was completely asleep on her phone. I mean, she was asleep driving. Her car was driving for her. And this lady had to call like the police. She was completely zonked out. I don't think I could do that. Like, trust my car to get me somewhere. Do any of you have a car that drives itself? Would you do that? Would you like actually literally go, all right, I need a nap? You know what that? Should have saw that on the news today. I was blown away. But is that like something we're supposed to get used to? Is it okay? Is it against the law? Is it legal to do that? Oh my gosh, that's why you should be minding your own business, looking where you're going. Or you don't find out someone next to you is asleep in their car. When I want music. No, Claire, she was knocked out. You mean, all I got was the lady was asleep or completely out, and her car was driving. So are you saying they found out more about her and like she was passed out? Like she had a medical emergency or something? She was in the carpool lane, just completely asleep. You know, sometimes with medical emergencies. I have no idea. I don't have a Tesla. So this is all foreign to me. I know they're moving towards that. They're having Ubers and stuff where there's not a person. Didn't mean to go into that conversation. But sometimes people see me using things like my octahoops or my satin edge, but when I completely let go and they think there must be an embroidery unit, but there's not. Does that qualify as long as you stay in your own lane? It's so nice to see you in the chat, Iris. I actually was thinking about you the other day, wondering how you were. Just so you know, all of you from the first Babbling Brook course are still very special. I think about you often and wish that you guys would be more active in the school. Seeing as you were some of the first students in the school. And if you're not getting the notifications from Create with Claire Rowley, go into your notification settings and make sure that you have them set up. If you do and you're still not getting the notifications from the school, it is possible that you have your notifications on your phone shut off. My brain goes, let's do some pebbles. And I'm like, no, we're not doing pebbles. Enough pebbles. We're doing sunflowers and cloudy swirls. I know, the joy of driving a vehicle. I love it. there is some satisfaction in being the driver of the vehicle. Just like there is total satisfaction in quilting your own quilt. Not to mention the fact that you can save hundreds of dollars doing your own quilt. You'll never have that disappointment, that possible disappointment of what someone can do to a quilt. I had somebody on the phone with me this week talking about how somebody quilted her quilt and she couldn't stand what that person did. And at that point, she was heartbroken and she said she cried. So yeah, I mean, you put a lot of work into your quilt, and it's not like your vision for your project goes away when you have it handed over to a quilter, someone who has a long arm, for instance. And what your vision is may not be what you get back. It definitely pays to get out the octahoops and use them. There's some more. So those yellow dots that I did not like at all when I was painting them were deliberate, and now this camera's still not focused as well as I'd like, but I'll have that. I should have that figured out next week. Hopefully it's not that I have to just get a new camera. It is an old camera. I tell you, if I'm making it look fun, it's because it is. But I don't have my elbow pad under my right elbow because it dropped and I'm hurting. Got it back now. I just need to push the machine further away. It's too close. And if it's too close, well, there's nowhere for your elbow. There we go. I'm almost done with these daisies. And if there's anything in particular that you guys have a question on, this is a good time to ask. Slide it over. So for those of you who are coming in now, know that this can be rewound. If you're wondering what I'm doing, these are the octahoops, which are frames that you can use on any sewing machine that has a straight stitch. And that can use feed dogs. So for instance, if you have an embroidery machine and it only sews with a hoop attached, you cannot use the octahoops because I am the one steering the frames. There's a frame beneath and a frame on top, and I bring the corner, as each hoop is an octagon shape, and bring the corners together, and that locks the entire quilt together. How puffy the heart is now. That's so cool. All right, and this was inking. This is a part 3 of a 3-part series on this Valentine notebook cover. So this was plain cream colored fabric. You no longer are restricted by what fabrics you can purchase in the store. You just start with a plain fabric and create your own fabric from using the steps that I did on the last 2 episodes of Fabrically Speaking Live, which is the show you are currently watching. And if you are participating in the live chat, you are here on the day that I'm filming live, which is February 9th of 2023. And if you're watching on that date and the sun has gone down in Arizona, you're watching the rewind. So I'm going to end here. I'm gonna scoot back over here. Some more yellow dots. More daisies to make. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Don't go faster than you feel like you can. controlling your speed with your speed control is good. Remember, if your machine is set to go too slow, you might not move your hands fast enough, and your stitches may end up being too short. What is too short? It's whatever you think is too short. I've drawn the border of my notebook, and outside of the border line, you can utilize that to practice things. So say you want to do something that's not just a swirl. You want to do a feather, for instance. Well, I'll do a feather for you. So we draw the stem. And there's lots of different ways of doing feathers, and I was completely not holding on. Because I'm trying to stop myself from getting carried away here. But if you've gotten good at drawing things on paper, you can expect to draw better on your quilt than on paper. I have my machine running full speed. Should have lowered it a long time ago. Can't see because the foot's in the way. I will do a better job if I don't use the foot. However, when I ink fabric and use white paint, or white ink or white paint for fabric painting, it can leave the fabric a little tacky or sticky, which makes me then want to use a foot because the needle starts to lift the fabric as it exits. And that's what causes your fabrics to do that. And I'm pretty much... What am I? I'm going to say I am D-O-N-E. If you want, you could have write love on your quilt. I could have quilted all of the outer perimeter in hearts, if you can draw a heart. So I could have just done a bunch of hearts instead of daisies. And that is whatever you can draw, you can quilt. Go ahead and cut my thread. Slide the hoops out and give you a better look. Can you see that well? And now you can see how the heart itself has been lifted up and even more dimensional than the inking did, and all of this other area has this nice little texture. Let's see if you can't see it better with this camera. By the way, today, February 9th of 2023, during the show until 5:30. So you got another hour and a half after the show to get 15% off anything at creativefeet.com. Isn't that nice? It does show up nice. I got this camera looking better. So isn't that cool? And won't that make a nice notebook cover for this ugly notebook? And this is kind of one of my doodle books that I practice. So this was my planning this class, thinking, all right, well, it'll be too hard. I can't make, that's me planning, figuring out how to autograph my novel so that my hand doesn't get sore. I never did practice my signature in my life. So now that I have to sign books, I practice that. I feel like a teenager. So that doodle ended up this design. What do you think? And this was one I did before, which was a lot more free, and I added some sequins, single sequins on there in the free motion. So if you watch this one, you can see how you can actually stitch sequins on. The master class is priced inside the school, and if you need different pricing arrangements, you can ask me inside of the school. So you go to createwithclairerowley.com, and then on the inside of this, if you haven't joined the school yet, be sure to join. It's free to join, and you have actually access to different groups in there and hanging out with all the people that you've been chatting with inside of here. And then if you can't pay for the course as it is, send me a message inside, and you just search my name and my picture will pop up. Click on my picture, and then it says say hello. Say hello. That's a private little conversation that you're having just with me, so nobody else knows. And then you can ask, and we do have different payment arrangements, or you can buy each section of the Creative Feed Extensive one section at a time. However, if you do that, you're not part of the group with everyone else that so you'll be only seeing the chats and conversations with the people that join in each quarter, rather than being able to be a part of the overall group. At least that's how I think it's going to go. And so I hope that you like this. If you enjoyed this, go ahead and be sure to hit the like button on your way out of the live chat, because there's another place to hit like. And if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I sure hope you'll do so today. Be sure to visit Create with Claire Rowley to join my school. If you want to get my novel, clairerowley.com is going to open within a couple days, and you'll be able to order an autographed copy of Beyond the Brushstrokes, which is my novel that I just published, and I'm super excited. You can see how thick it is. It's a big book, 355 pages, I think. So, and this is a contemporary romance novel, which is suitable for young women and older women. My mom was reading it in her 80s, and she was loving it. So I hope that you'll also read that. There is a Beyond the Brushstrokes group inside of the school, and there's also an art group, and I will be teaching more artistic things like this on the upcoming Beyond the Brushstrokes YouTube channel, which is a plan that I had all along with the Beyond the Brushstrokes book, and having that, and also a podcast that will be releasing soon, and blah blah blah. I never stop talking, but then you guys seem to like it. So as long as you want me to keep chatting, I will keep hanging out with you guys. I love you so much. I just hope that you know that, because if it weren't for you, I would not still be here 35 years this August with the Creative Feet. And let's just have fun. Keep having fun, right? Do any of you have any more questions? You've been watching for a while. Yes, Sharon she's done a lot with the octahubes, if I remember correctly. It's just been relaxing. So by Thursday, I want to know that you at least took the hoops and got to know them and carried them around, and no matter how silly you felt, you slid them around and got the feel of them, because that's step one. Step one is believing you can. Step two is the desire to do it. Your desire needs to be bigger than you may think. So you may need to not make something for yourself, but have the desire to make something for someone else. Unfortunately, a lot of times we don't value ourselves enough. I think that this is a great notebook to make for yourself. But Valentine's, well, who do you love enough to make a notebook for? You have a grandchild or a person in your life that you feel that way about, that would like something like this? Maybe this is what it would take for you to get the octahubes out. to make a present for somebody else. And I highly recommend doing that sometimes, making things for other people, as we do tend to do more for others than ourselves sometimes. So the belief that you can do it, the desire to do it, the right tools to be able to succeed, to actually not go, oh man, I'm never going to be good at it because I can't seem to get my fabric to move. And nobody, I mean, if you can get to where you're perfect, free motion quilting without the octaves, doing like perfect circles and stuff, it's an astounding accomplishment. And you all need to know that, because if you feel like you must not be good because it's so hard for you to do a perfect circle, just know that it's not easy for anyone to draw a circle with your elbows up, with the hands together and pushing down against a sticky surface. It's just not. It's easier to draw like that. And remember, I draw better on fabric than I do on paper. It's astounding. I just hope that you'll push through the doubt and push yourself a little bit and get your octaheaps out and have fun, and don't be shy. Share your pictures in the school with everybody. Get to know one another. I will see you in the school. I will also see you on the Discord. Discord is the chat where you can continue this chat all the time. Chat with everybody, including me. And just look for Claire Rowley. And that is how you find the Discord. We have our own channel, I guess is what it's called. Love you all. See you next Thursday. Mwah. Bye. Thanks for watching me again.